Hello everyone, this is AJ Smith from AJSmith365.com as well as BacaStrategies.com, that is BAQA Strategies.com. We are a business analysis quality assessment organization, and today I just wanted to kind of have a knowledge transfer in regards to data analysis. So a lot of people want to know, what is data analysis, what is data analytics? And data analysis or data analytics is just basically the examination of information or data in order to identify the patterns or trends within it. And what you're also going to do with this, or you're going to make inferences based on the information that you obtain. Data analytics falls into one of four categories. Data analytics can either be descriptive, and descriptive is just kind of what happened, when did it happen, where did it happen. So you're just basically describing something that has already occurred. Diagnostic, which is also within the present or past tense. You know, why did it happen? Why did X thing occur? It can be predictive. And predictive is just basically looking at the data and saying, based upon the information or trends that I see, it is highly likely, or it is highly unlikely, or it is somewhat likely, somewhat unlikely that X will occur. Or it can be prescriptive, and that is basically just saying that based upon the information and data obtained, we recommend the following actions. When you're looking at diagnostic and descriptive analytics, those are pretty much going to be simpler or straightforward, more so it's just as far as when you're talking about mathematical computation. You're pretty much just using some type of tool. If you're working in a relational database, such as what I used to do back in the early 2000s, you're basically using something to extract information from some type of repository, whether it be from an Excel spreadsheet of volumes of data that's captured there, or it can be captured in a relational database, such as you're talking about DB2, Oracle, so forth, where you're using some type of tool or reporting feature to extract that information. Now, when you're talking about prescriptive and predictive analytics, that is a little bit more complex, where you have to know at least a little bit more mathematical calculations, such as calculus and so forth, to be able to work with variables so that you can write particular code or algorithms to kind of do prescriptive and predictive analytics. A good example of prescriptive analytics would be if you've ever used certain online tools, or whether you're using certain on-demand media features. A lot of times if you buy something online, or if you look at certain videos within your media repository that you're using, something may say, well, based upon what you watch this one show over here, and based upon that, we recommend that you watch, you know, XYZ show, or people who watch this show tend to also watch that, and they make recommendations to you. That is based upon very complex algorithms that were created in order to do predictive and prescriptive analytics, and that is a lot more complex than dealing with diagnostic and descriptive. Some of the tools that you'll see within a prescriptive or predictive analytics environment would be AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. Microsoft has their business intelligence tools, IBM Cognos, as well as you'll see tools such as like Tableau. People will use those as well, but people use Tableau and in descriptive and diagnostic analytics also. Also, the other thing that I'll say too is, when you're talking about data analytics, it is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to be dealing with data, and you're going to be dealing with analysis. It's similar to show business. You have the show and business, and a lot of times I used to hear entertainers say, you know, wow, you know, coming from, you know, just getting there, starting to show business and seeing what it is like on a professional scale, they finally say, I understand that, you know, I get it. I see why the word business is so much bigger than show, because the business side is like the majority, 70-80% of what occurs in the show is probably just this much, the rehearsals and the actual performance. The performance may take an hour, and the show may take an hour or 15 minutes or 5 minutes. But the business side of it, when you're talking about the logistics of getting whatever resources and tools from place to place, but when you're just talking about contracts and you're talking about sales and marketing, all of that information consumes a lot. And it is the same when you're talking about from a business analytics or data analytics perspective. I offer a class called the Introduction to the Business Systems Analysis Masterclass. It is available online on various e-learning platforms. It is also available on ajsmith365.com, as well as Baca Strategies, BAQAstrategies.com, which will definitely help you in if you're getting into the data analytics environment, because a lot of the techniques that you use as a data analyst, you will use as a business systems analyst. When you see people deploy IT systems such as the social networking sites or social networking apps, they don't just say, okay, I want an app, and then the 1 week or 1 month, and then they go and code it and they deploy it. So there are probably very few apps that have done that, and they're probably smaller apps with smaller teams, but most things take months, if not years, to construct, to visualize and deploy. And a lot of that time is spent doing analysis, understanding what the business objective is, understanding what the business rules around the tool or the tools or the business rules governing the IT system, as well as just kind of narrowing down what the specs and what some of the features within that tool is going to be. That's the part that takes months. And then you have the development. Development can take months as well, but you spend a lot of time trying to visualize what the end product is going to be. And the same thing, you're going to do that when you're in a business systems analyst environment or a data analyst environment. You're going to spend a lot of time not just doing analysis on the data once you deploy your strategy, but you're going to spend a lot of time up front trying to understand what it is that your customer or that your superiors want. So let's just kind of walk through just a quick example of what a data analyst scenario could be. So let's just say you have a child. Let's just say it's your daughter. She says she signed up to learn tennis. She signed up for this junior tennis league. She's a preteen and she has her first match coming up on June 1st. So she comes to you on May 1st, a month ahead of time, and says, I really want to become a great tennis player. And the one way that I can become a great tennis player is by having an outstanding serve. So what I want you to do as my parent, I want you to track and record all of my aces that I get within a match. And so you may say, okay, fine. So you just go ahead and you get out your pen and pad and you go to all of the matches. Your child's going to have 10 matches for this season. So the match is going to run June through August. And the season occurs and you go to every game and you're tracking down all of this information. So at the end of the season, you come with your pen and pad with your 10 games that you tracked, and you said, hey, I've done what you asked me to do. I've tracked your aces and here's the information. So this is what you present them with. You present them with this table. You took your little your pen and paper and you transcribed it onto this table and you presented it to them. You say, well, see, look here. In game 1 you had 3 aces. Game 2 you had 1 ace. Game 3 you had 3 aces, and so forth and so forth. So now your child comes to you and looks at the information, and the one thing that you want to ask yourself is, now, what can they do with this information? What can they do with just knowing how many games they've played and what the aces were? Really, the only thing that this kind of tells them is probably on average how many aces they have for that particular season. And they can see the minimum amount of aces that occurred, and they can see the maximum amount of aces that occurred. So one of the questions that you have to ask yourself too is, is this doing a good duty to your daughter, aka your client, the future tennis star? And I would have to say no, because sometimes when people come to us and ask for information, especially from a client perspective, you have to do your duty, a professional duty, to go to your client and kind of provide consultation. And a part of that consultation should consider asking questions and also making recommendations to enhance what it is that they do. In this, whether it be for your daughter or whether it be for any business client, two things come out of this. The two positives that can come out of doing that and making sure that you capture extensive data is, number one, your client can see that you know what you're talking about and that you put a lot of thought and care into it. Now, sometimes your client may not want to hear it. Sometimes your client may say, you're doing too much. I didn't ask you for all of this. I don't have time for all of this. Trust me, I've been told this on several times before, but because you're barraging people with a lot of information, they may say, I just want you to do what I asked you to do. But trust me, I've been in this situation before. Back in 1999, early 2000, where I've had executives come to me, assistant commissioners, directors, come to me, and they used to tell me, I need you to do this. And they come in my cubicle, my workspace, for 5 minutes and say, this is what I want. And they walk away. You do exactly it is what they say that they wanted. And then once you present them with the information, they say, that's not what I wanted. And then you say, well, yes, it is. That's what you came to my cubicle and stated. Or they'll say, yeah, this is great, but I wish we would have captured this. And now, because now that they have the information presented in front of them, now they start getting additional ideas of information. And sometimes it's unfortunate, but sometimes once things occur, what's in the past can kind of be what's in the past. And if all you capture are games and aces, not unless you videotape those games, every single game, and you captured every single shot within that game, you can't go back into the past and scrub this information. That information is now gone. And that can definitely be if you're working in various environments, if you're working for sales or marketing or fashion industry, or whether it be for some type of company, or if you're working in a sports arena, some information could just be gone. So you want to make sure that you capture all of the attributes up front that you're going to need in order to capture and house your data. So let's just take a step back, and we're going to rewind this, and now we're going to say let's really do a good duty to our child, aka our client, the future tennis star. So now we're actually going to say, the one thing that we're going to want to do as a data analyst, and as an analyst doing data analyst work and doing a data analytics work, is we're going to want to say, number one, I need to have some various elicitation sessions with my client to kind of understand really what is the business objective, what is their objective that they're trying to go for in capturing this information. What's the reason? And you want to find out what is the business objective for your child. It may seem straightforward. They want to know aces because they're just trying to become a future tennis star. But why? So you may need to host various elicitation sessions with your client to determine and engage, whether that takes doing surveys, but in this situation it's just one child, so you wouldn't be doing surveys, but surveys, questionnaires, but you're definitely going to be doing interviews. But there are going to be sessions where you're going to want to glean a lot of information, and you have to determine what kind of tactics you're going to use. And again, we offer that in our e-learning class, Introduction to the Business Systems Analysis Profession, which is available on ajsmith365.com, bacastrategies.com, as well as various e-learning platforms. So you're going to want to take some type of requirements elicitation approach so that you can figure out what data it is that you're capturing. The next thing that you're going to also want to do is you're going to want to also educate yourself on tennis. Now, you may not, because there are going to be times when you're placed into a role or you're servicing a client in a various field, and you may not know all of the information about that. So it's going to take time where you're going to have to learn about particular organizational processes and business rules that occur. So you may need to say, I know about tennis. I have my knowledge about tennis is very high level, but I need to learn the rules and regulations around tennis, specifically maybe juniors tennis, so that I understand, what the rules are. And maybe specifically, I need to focus in on aces and learning and understanding about aces and serving, period. So you may focus in on that. Then the other thing you're going to want to say is, does my daughter currently have information on hand that kind of could help me? Maybe she has some historical stuff. Has she played tennis before? And what was her stats back then? So you may want to look to, within an organization, if you're servicing something, pre-existing data repositories to look at previous data, because maybe we can do year-over-year comparisons, and then also we can look at the gaps. What information was captured back then, based upon what is the new information that we're going to capture now. So now we go to our client, our child, and then we say, well, look, I know you just want to capture aces, but have you ever thought about just figuring out, where you were serving at on the court when you got those particular aces? Were you standing closer to the service line, or more towards the left baseline or the right baseline when you got these aces? Where were you placing the serve at? Within the service box, were you closer to the service line, or were you trying to swing the other player far right or far left? Where were you placing it at on the service box? And your client may say, I never thought about that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's capture that information. Then you may say, well, also too, did you get these aces on the first serve or on the second serve? This may be important information you need to know. Maybe it is you're stronger on your first serve and you tend to be more cautious on your second serve. The client may say, that's good information. That's good. I think that's a good idea. We need to capture that. You may also say too, have you thought about, does playing on any type of particular court affect you? I know that, I've taken you to play on various courts, or will you be playing on various courts such as grass, clay, or concrete? Because maybe those conditions may affect your type of game. And then your child may say, hey, I don't know what type of conditions I want to play on, but let's just, put that down as a potential thing to capture. And then you're going to start going down the list, and you can say, okay, too, I understand tennis is kind of different than regular sports. In regular sports, a game is a game. In football, a game is a game. In soccer, a game is an entire game. In hockey, a game is an entire game. In tennis, a game is just a subcomponent of a set, which is also a subcomponent of a match. So a match in tennis is the functional equivalent to a game in other sports. So I'm going to shift my terminology, and I'm going to start talking are we just talking about matches? You want to look at it? Do we want to break this down between matches, games, and matches, sets, and games? Do we need to look at it from that perspective, how you got your aces? And they say, yeah, that's a good idea. And then also too, you may say, well, let's also talk about what the time into the game that you got these serves, because maybe you're stronger in the beginning, and as the game goes on, you tire out and your serves get weaker. As a child, you may not, for this child playing tennis, they may not track, the speed of the serve. So that may be out, because tracking the speed of the serve would definitely be a good thing too. And then you may say also too, I noticed that you play with two different type of rackets. You play, and being a former player a very novice tennis player who used to play for little rec leagues when I was younger, when you play tennis, you can have your racket strung a particular way. You can string it very tight for power, or you can string it a little looser for control. So maybe this child has two different rackets, and the child says, I'm going to play with one racket for power, one racket for control, because I'm still trying to figure out what my game is. And so you may say, do you want to track what racket you got these aces with? Then it says, you know what, that's a very good idea, because I don't know. So then you may also say too, okay, does the weather affect your game? Like, will you be playing in high altitudes or high humidity, low humidity? Does any of that have any effect on your child? And say, you know what, that's a good idea. I probably want to need to know about that. Then you may take it to another step again, and you may say, look, what about your opponents? Do you want to track your opponents? Because maybe the dexterity of your opponent affects your serves. Maybe serving to a left-handed player or a right-handed player, or whether you're serving to their backhand or serving to their forehands make a difference. Maybe that you're playing against an aggressive player or a passive player, a player that's more cautious and stays to the baseline and doesn't, come up as much on the serve or, crowd the service box more. Does that matter? Or how athletic the player is? Is this information that we need to track? And your child may say, I never thought about any of this. Let's track this. Now, by you tracking all of this different information, now you have a better understanding of the level of effort. So now you know that my level of effort has changed. This isn't something that I can probably do in an Excel spreadsheet or just on a pen and pad, just writing stuff down in a little table. I'm probably going to need a relational database to do this. And so now I'm going to have to break out my skills. I'm going to have to break out my SQL skills, which is structured query language, which is a language used in databases, SQL servers, and to extract information from a database. You may have to break out your PL/SQL skills, which is procedural language, structured query language. You may have to break out Python skills. You may also just have to know or leverage some tool that you're using, whether it be Tableau, IBM Cognos. And also when you're dealing with relational databases, maybe you're saying, hey, I'm going to use a front-end query tool such as Toad that I'm going to put on so that I can, drag and drop and to create queries. And so you can do that as well. Or you may say, I don't have access to those, but I do have access to Microsoft Access. And I can create, that is a relational database tool, and I can create a database in there, and it does have its version of SQL, and I can create and run reports from there. So now that you know what the level of effort is, you kind of know what kind of tools you need to work with, and now you also know what kind of skill sets you need to have. What kind of programming skills, if any, you need to have, what kind of tools, hardware and or software that you need to have. So this is why it's important, because some of this information you may say, hey, look, I can't get all of this done in 1 month. I can't go and procure a SQL server and will it be accepted into the environment? Because sometimes, depending upon if you're working in an organization, if they don't have the hardware or software in place, and if stuff is going to be on-prem, on site, you have to run things through enterprise architecture or through some governing body within your organization to see what they will allow or to see what you have access to. But since this is for your child, you're saying, hey, look, I'm going to be able to acquire the tools that I'm going to need, and I'm going to get you and build this information out for you. And so based upon all of those discussions and these conversations that you were able to have, and you're saying, I have enough time, I know what the level of effort is. Now you're able to present the level of effort to your child to say, this is what I can do. This is how long it's going to take me to do it. And if this was an actual client, then you can say, and this is what I'm going to have to bill you for doing so. So the good thing about the second method that I've explained and how to go about and making recommendations, yeah, it may seem like you're upselling a client. In this case, it will be your child on additional services or additional information that they didn't ask for. But the best thing to do is to at least present them with their options so that they can shoot it down and they can scale back or they can accept the scope. Because the thing is that it's a win-win situation. Number one, it's, the worst thing that can happen, like I said before, and I'll revisit some comment that I made earlier, is that, yeah, I do like to ask a lot of questions. And sometimes I will ask a lot of questions where I've had some people, be irritated and just say, just do what I asked you to do. And then when they come back and they say, well, I didn't get the information that I wanted. I let it be on them to say, hey, look, well, I tried to offer you those additional, that additional information, that additional service, but you shot it down. But it at least lets them know that you kind of know what you're talking about, you know what you're trying to do, and you're informed, and you've informed them of all of their options. The good thing for you is how it works out in a win-win is, number one, it makes you look more professional because you've presented and at least you've shown that you put thought and effort into putting something together for your client to, you know, get them the best data possible. And then also it could help you out as far as being gainfully employed to keep your contract going for maybe months or years. And it also probably helps as far as for billing and services. As you can see, you've increased your level of effort. But you can see the difference in the two approaches. So when you're looking at it from the second approach, now you've seen that we've gathered a lot of information and we need that relational database. We've created several tables from this. We've created a match table that's going to hold we're going to probably establish an ID. We're going to establish a date of the match. We're going to establish how many minutes into the match the aces occurred. So we're going to track that on a timestamp. We're going to track the sets, the games, then also the actual number of the aces, which will be integers. We're going to track the service, whether the service number, whether it was on the first serve or second serve. We're going to track the serve position, the target position of the serve, whether and the opponent in the serve box. We're going to track the opponent ID because now we also said too, we're going to track our opponents. So, and we'll talk about the opponent table in a second. Then we've come up with a court surface, whether it's going to be clay, grass, or concrete. We're going to track the racket because that was also a new information that we brought in. And so we're going to create a racket table so we can look at the rackets that we have. Then we're also going to track the temperature, which is also going to be on the temperature table that we have. And then we're also even going to track the game status, which is just going to be, we're going to keep that at Boolean, whether that's going to be a win or a loss. So that will be our match table. Then we're looking at our opponent table, and we're going to just have an opponent ID, which is going to be the primary key. It's going to be a unique identifier on that table. We're going to track the opponent's name. We're going to track their physical dexterity, whether they're left-handed or right-handed. Some players are ambidextrous, but you see very few, especially in the tennis realm. We're going to track their height, mobility, and style of play. And then we're going to go down to the racket table, and then we're going to create a separate table for that. So we're going to have a racket ID. We're going to track the name of our rackets, you know, and then we're going to track the series of the racket, and then we're going to track the string type of the racket, whether it was strung for power or whether it was strung for control. So that's another Boolean. And then we're going to create a weather table. And on that weather table, again, we're going to have the date. We're going to have the temperature. We're going to have we're going to track the temperature scale, whether that was on a Celsius or Fahrenheit table. We're going to track the humidity, and then we're also going to track the visibility. And so from all of this information here, you can see how this version differs immensely from the first version. The first version, you could really only tell the player after 10 games, really just on average, how many aces they had on an average of 10 games. And then what was the minimum amount of aces and what was the maximum amount of aces and what date did those occur. That's really the information that you're presenting. With this here, with the second version of us really doing our homework and putting a lot of effort and thought into it, we can actually say, you know what? When you serve at least 3 aces in a match, or 3 aces in the first set, you win. Or, you know, 3 aces within a set, you win. Or within a game within a set, you win. When you have 5 aces total in one match, no matter which game it occurred in or set it occurred in, you win. Or when you're playing against left-handed players and you use your racket strung for control, you get more aces. Or when you serve to a person's backhand, we can tell a lot of information. And we can also say that when you play on clay, this is what happened. We've noticed too that under these types of weather conditions, this is what we can say, this is what happened. We can do descriptive information, and we can also get into predictive if we wanted to. So we can come up with a lot of different information, and we can see when we win, when we lose, what is occurring. We can see that we can do so much more permutations or variations of patterns within the data, looking at it from capturing as many attributes as possible. So that's why it's important to do your homework and to present all of the options to your various clients. And whether you're working in a tennis room or whether you're just in a regular business setting, you want to go through the process of really your business analyst process, the process of eliciting information from your client or the product owner or whomever's requesting this data, so that you can do the best data analytics job by capturing the right information. Because if there are anything that you omit out, if you have any omissions within your construct of your data repository, again, you can't go back and you can't go back in the past most times and capture this information. Once it's gone, it's gone. If you're working in a fast food chain and that fast food chain wants to know how many people came in at 5 o'clock, how many came in at 6 o'clock, how many came in at 7 o'clock, and you're supposed to be tracking the number of people, what did they order, what sandwiches were popular on which day and what sandwiches were popular on another day. Well, when the weather conditions outside are sunny, how much business do we do as opposed to, or what's selling on sunny days versus what's selling on rainy days. There's various things that you can go through. So that's why it's important to always think out the various scenarios and make sure that you're capturing the right data elements, so that you can go ahead and massage the data and go through the data and present the right information to your clients, whether you're presenting it to them in a dashboard form or whether you're presenting it to a reporting form. But it is important to just ensure that you capture the data up front. And that's why I say that the analysis part is, especially the upfront analysis, is a lot harder, because once you have that information of what they want, and once you kind of narrow that down, if you're good at SQL, or if you're good at Python, or if you're good at using Tableau, Amazon Web Services, or any of the other business intelligence tool, IBM Cognos, if you're good at using the tool, the information is relatively easier to kind of put into the tool and spit out. But it is a lot harder to nail down the right information, at least in my personal opinion. It is a lot harder to nail down the right information so that you can present that to your client. So that is really business analysis, kind of just in a very high level nutshell, just kind of a crash course. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of other individuals offering courses online about data analytics. I don't have any plans right now to do a course on data analytics or using some of the tools, such as doing Python, using coding, but you can learn Python coding. You can definitely learn structured query language or procedural language, structured query language, and both of those would be SQL, and then the latter would be PL/SQL. You can definitely also, too, like I said, you would need to have some kind of, be relatively good at least basic calculus, from the beginner. The firm SAS, and I think that's SAS, and they're based down in Cary, North Carolina. They've been doing this type of stuff since before time, but they have their own proprietary tools and software. It's a bunch of statisticians that they basically majored in statistics. They do this. They've been doing this since I first started running queries back in 1999 and using SQL and doing data mining stuff. But like I said, they're based down in Cary, North Carolina, and I think a lot of the big companies with billion-dollar, multi-million-dollar companies use SAS. services. But like I said, there are still a lot of other companies that use smaller contractors or consultants and or tools. And like I said, you can use tools as simple as spreadsheets, whether it's Excel or Google, or you can use things like I said, you can progress up to using whether it can also be non-relational databases like open source MongoDB, and whether you're using relational databases, whether it's a tool simple as Microsoft Access, or whether you're using SQL Server, and like I said, you're scaling all the way up to Amazon Web Services. But there are various tools that are out there, and also there are various classes that you can take, that you can look up. But if you do have any information or questions in regards to it, just feel free to send me an email. I like interacting with individuals. And so you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to me on the various platforms, ajsmith365.com. You can reach out to me on my e-learning platforms. And you can check out my YouTube page as well, ajsmith365. And that's just my brief discussion on data analytics. So again, if you want to talk to me, hit me up.